is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country founded by...
country.
This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world. No country says that temporary visitors, their children, will be given complete access to the benefits and blessings of American citizenship. America should actually look out for the interests of our citizens first.
That's JD Vance calmly dismantling the community college rhetoric of smug CBS host and woman with the worst poker face imaginable, Margaret Brennan, during his recent interview on Face the Nation. Welcome to Nerk News, I'm Nerkish, and it looks like the media is already doing everything in its power to combat President Trump and his new administration. The only problem for them is that no one seems to care about their low IQ biased takes anymore. Here's Margaret Brennan thinking she cornered JD Vance with a gotcha question, only for it to blow up in her face spectacularly.
There are 5 legal challenges already to one of the other immigration actions, the order on birthright citizenship. A federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan, I think you'd agree, has some conservative credentials,
sure,
paused the order to end birthright citizenship, calling it blatantly unconstitutional. How do you reconcile this challenge to the 14th Amendment to the Constitution?
So I obviously disagree with that judge, and these things, some of them will be litigated. That's the nature of our constitutional system. But here's the basic idea of President Trump's view on this. If you are a lawful permanent resident or a legal immigrant who plans to stay, your children, of course, should become American citizens. If you come here on vacation and you have a baby in an American hospital, that baby doesn't become an American citizen. If you're an illegal alien and you come here temporarily, hopefully, your child does not become an American citizen by virtue of just having been born on American soil. There's a very basic principle in American immigration law that if you want to become an American citizen and you've done it the right way, and the American people and their collective wisdom have welcomed you into our national community, then you become a citizen. But temporary residents, people who come in here, whether legally or illegally, and don't plan to stay, their children should become American citizens. I don't know any country that does that or why we would be different. If you're here permanently and lawfully, your kid becomes an American citizen. If you're not here permanently, if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and don't plan to be, why would we make those people's children American citizens permanently?
I've got to say, it's honestly baffling where she gets this confidence from. I mean, the majority of these hacks in establishment media are like perpetual freshmen in college who just finished their first Howard Zinn book. The fact of the matter is that the founders and people who settle this country are nothing like the people currently pouring over our border. One group created institutions and resources, and the other wants to drain them. I mean, there was barely anything here when the settlers arrived. They were fearless pioneers who tamed this nation and built things that required blood, sweat, and tears and took hundreds of years to develop. The modern day equivalent to that is not letting unvetted people who have no interest in assimilation pour in through the southern border.
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals have been properly vetted.
But there are 30,000 people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary concern as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people are vetted. Good. These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
You know, the thing that's so refreshing about this interview is that everything is laid bare. Vance drops the pretense and states the obvious truth, which everyone knows at this point. American citizens, like any sovereign country, have the right to refuse entrance to anyone, because unlike the people pouring in, we have skin in the game. The country was built by our ancestors and is home to our children.
Catholic bishops this week week condemned some of the executive orders signed by President Trump, specifically those allowing immigration and customs enforcement to enter churches and to enter schools. Do you personally support the idea of conducting a raid or enforcement action in a church service, at a school?
Well, let me address this. Of course, if you have a person who is convicted of a violent crime, whether they're an illegal immigrant or a non-illegal immigrant, you have to go and get that person to protect the public safety. That's not unique to immigration. And I think that the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over $100 million to help resettle illegal immigrants, are they worried about humanitarian concerns, or are they actually worried about their bottom line? We are going to enforce immigration law. We're going to protect the American people.
Yeah.
Donald Trump promised to do that, and I believe the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, if they're worried about the humanitarian costs of immigration enforcement, let them talk about the children who have been sex trafficked because of the wide open border of Joe Biden.
You personally
let them talk
support them
about
going into
people like
schools
Laken
and
Riley
churches.
who were brutally murdered. I support us doing law enforcement against violent criminals, whether they're illegal immigrants or anybody else, in a way that keeps us safe. Let me ask this question, Margaret. Let's separate the immigration issue. If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
Of course.
So what's the point of the question?
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
Giving the authority to go into churches and go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to enforce the law everywhere to protect Americans.
Effect, a chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it has a chilling effect on illegal immigrants coming into our country.
You think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops are actively hiding criminals from
I think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement.
Call me crazy, but I hope that legacy media keeps using low IQ, biased journalists like this to act like disappointed HR reps and mean girls in high school cafeterias. Because I honestly can't think of a better advertisement for Trump's agenda than to contrast the rampant unprofessionalism of these supposedly objective media figures with members of Trump's administration. I mean, you'd figure this woman wouldn't be as smug after getting owned by Vance during the vice presidential debates. Yet, here she is interrupting him every 4 seconds and making faces like a snotty 6-year-old. Because at the end of the day, all these types are just too proud to admit that they might be wrong on something and simply can't help themselves from gloating. But let me know what you think. How do you feel about JD Vance as Trump's pick for VP? Is it possible for anyone to watch that interview and think Brennan came out on top? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye!